There are moments in sports that feel almost mythic, moments that seem to fold time in on itself as two eras collide in front of millions of eyes. That was the energy pulsing through the 2024 WNBA All-Star Weekend when Cheryl Miller, a woman so dominant in her time that the sport is still shaped by her shadow, stood on the sideline coaching Caitlyn Clark, the new face of women's basketball whose rise has reshaped the landscape in ways nobody saw coming. The cameras captured the exchange, but the deeper story stretched far beyond a viral clip. Clark looked at Miller with the awe of someone who grew up hearing her name whispered like a legend, while Miller studied Clark with the recognition of someone who knows exactly what it feels like to carry a sport on your shoulders before you're old enough to understand the consequences. It was a brief moment that said everything about where women's basketball has been and where it is going. Long before Clark was shattering scoring records, before she was drawing the kinds of television audiences most men's sports would envy, there was Miller. In the early 1980s, she wasn't just a standout player, she was an anomaly. A force so overwhelming that she made people reconsider what women could do with a basketball. During her USC run, she collected national championships, National Player of the Year awards, and numbers that still look unreal even by modern standards. She could dominate inside, stretch the floor, play above the rim, and carry a team by sheer will. Her college career finished with point and rebound totals that still echo through the record books. Yet her reward for that dominance was a bittersweet one. The WNBA didn't exist when she graduated. Her prime years came in an era with no professional league in the United States. She played overseas. She won Olympic gold. But the grand stage she deserved didn't exist yet. Then came Caitlyn Clark, nearly 4 decades later, rewriting basketball history in front of full arenas and national broadcasts. Her scoring wasn't just prolific, it was seismic. She didn't just break the Division I scoring record. She obliterated it. By the time she left Iowa, she had changed the sports economy, viewership, and cultural footprint. Ratings soared into NBA territory. Arenas that never sold out before became impossible to enter. Networks that once hesitated to broadcast women's games suddenly fought to air every second she played. Clark arrived at exactly the right moment, at a time when the infrastructure existed to amplify her impact rather than erase it. And that is exactly why Cheryl Miller saw herself in Caitlyn Clark. Not because they played the same, but because she recognized the burden Clark now carries. Their first real interaction happened far from the bright lights of an arena. It was in Los Angeles at the Honda Awards, where Clark received the honor for the top collegiate female athlete in the nation. Miller approached her with a message that, on the surface, sounded simple. She didn't tell her how to shoot or how to defend. She told her to have fun, to find a quiet place inside the chaos, to hold on to the joy that made her love the game in the first place. Coming from anyone else, it might have sounded cliché. Coming from Miller, it was a warning dressed as encouragement. She knew what it felt like to have your entire sport projected onto your shoulders. She knew how heavy that crown becomes when everyone expects excellence every night. She knew the loneliness that comes from being the face of something bigger than yourself. And she knew that if Clark wasn't careful, the weight would grind her down just like it had done to countless legends before her. Chronic injuries stole Miller's playing career far too early. By the time the WNBA finally launched in 1997, she was already forced to transition into coaching. She became one of the first faces of the league, but never as a player. She watched the world she helped create unfold from the sidelines while new stars took the floor. So when she looked at Clark, she didn't just see potential. She saw a second chance for the sport. A chance for someone to experience fully what she never did. A chance to build a bridge between generations. That's why All-Star Weekend felt so powerful. Clark had weathered one of the most difficult rookie starts in league history. Her team struggled. Her body was tested night after night by veterans determined to remind her that accolades didn't earn automatic respect. The hits were harder than expected. The criticism was louder than deserved. The expectations were higher than anything the league had ever placed on someone so young. She walked into the All-Star environment carrying emotional bruises along with physical ones. And there, waiting on the sideline, was Cheryl Miller. A legend offering guidance rather than judgment. A woman who understood that being great isn't always the hardest part. The hardest part is being great while everyone is watching, expecting, questioning, and sometimes resenting. Clark admitted that seeing Miller again felt like finding an ally in a sea of pressure. And during those moments, Miller did exactly what Clark needed. She encouraged her, grounded her, reminded her that the crown does not have to crush you if you remember why you put it on in the first place. The cameras caught flashes of their interactions during timeouts. A hand on the shoulder. A smile. A message whispered quickly before the next possession. For Clark, those weren't just coaching tips. They were lifelines. Proof that someone who had lived the life she was living now understood her better than anyone else could. What made this connection even more emotional was how Miller reacted to Clark's growth. The first professional win Clark earned came against the Sparks in Los Angeles, and Miller found her afterward. She saw the frustration Clark had been carrying. She saw the pressure she had endured, and she told her to savor it, to remember the feeling, to use it as a guide for what comes next. It wasn't about celebrating one victory. It was about giving Clark a reminder that progress happens even when the world is trying to make the climb harder. The relationship between these two women represents the evolution of the sport itself. Miller's generation built the hardwood path brick by brick. They pushed against a world that wasn't ready for them. They created the possibility of professional women's basketball even though they never got to fully reap the rewards. Clark's generation walks that path with crowds cheering behind them, networks pointing cameras at them, and businesses lining up to sign them. But the pressure, the expectations, the emotional toll, that part hasn't changed. And that is where Miller's voice matters the most. In Clark, Miller sees a player who can take women's basketball to places she never could. In Miller, Clark sees a blueprint for navigating the chaos without losing yourself. Their bond is a reminder that greatness is not just about stats or trophies. It's about legacy, resilience, and the wisdom passed down from those who came before. As the next generation of stars emerges, the question becomes clear. What will they learn from Caitlyn Clark in the same way Clark has learned from Cheryl Miller? And how will this lineage of greatness shape the future of women's basketball for decades to come? If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most powerful cross-generational stories in sports, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next breakdown. And let me know in the comments, what do you think the next generation will take from Caitlyn Clark's journey the same way she has taken wisdom from Cheryl Miller?